Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's B.E.S.T standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go, I see you. And let's dive into today's B.E.S.T standard.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Mccarthy and I am super pumped that you are joining me today as we break down the following B.E.S.T standard. Today's standard is MA.5.AR.3.2. The standard says, given a rule for a numerical pattern, use a two-column table to record the inputs and the outputs. Right here I have an arrow pointing to this table. To me, this is I'm kind of confused on why they call it a two-column table because I thought columns were going up and down. This looks like it's a table with two rows, not two columns, but I'm just going to leave it like that. And it says to record the inputs, which is represented as X, and the outputs. By the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is not something that I created. This is a document that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public, and I'm just showing you how I take what they provide to help me understand the B.E.S.T standards so that I can create resources that are strategically aligned to them and available in your membership for taking on the B.E.S.T. Okay, so if we are given this rule, 6 plus 2x, where x represents any whole number, it can be represented in this two-column table. We'll just go with it. So basically we're plugging in the values of x into the expression to get our outputs. Okay, some clarifications that this builds a foundation for proportional and linear relationships in later grades. You will see, because we are going to graph some of these and connect it with another 5th grade benchmark, that you start to see a line. And we're hoping that students start to see that so that in 6th grade and in later grades, we know that in middle school, we do a lot of graphing and proportional and linear relationships. Rules are limited to 1 or 2 operations in the example and for the expression in the example. I would say that the example that they gave us has 2 operations because we're multiplying the coefficient. Let me show you. Here, 6 plus 2x, this example has 2 operations in my opinion because we're multiplying the coefficient times the input and then adding 6, okay? Some related benchmarks are a graphing benchmark with coordinate planes in the real world. We will have a video lesson dedicated to how this standard connects with that standard. In 4th grade, they had patterns. They also had pattern examples in 3rd grade. And in 6th grade, they have patterns and ratios in columns. If we scroll down to the purpose and instructional strategies section, there's just a few things that jumped out at me that I want to point out to you. It says that we're using a 2-column table for students to record inputs and outputs. In the standard right before this one, MA.5.AR.3.2, students will determine rules from a given pattern. So this one connects nicely and should be used in conjunction. Look, it says here, it should be paired with this standard because it really does go nicely. Take a look at that standard if you have not already, and you'll see that the numerical expression that goes nicely with this standard too. This is the 1st grade where students record inputs and outputs in 2-column tables and build that foundation for proportional relationships in the middle school years. It says during instruction, teachers can relate the idea of inputs and outputs to a machine that we input the term number and the output is the value. And they should be able to make connections between representing the information in a 2-column table as ordered pairs on a coordinate plane. And I was very intentional about this because I felt that it went nicely. So you will see a video lesson on that, or at least where you can locate the video lesson on that. Common misconceptions, just that students might determine a rule based on the change only in the first 2 patterns, but that a rule must work for any of the patterns here. I think a lot of the errors that they will make will just be errors in computation for this. I thought that this example right here with the math machine was fun. If the machine here is malfunctioning, so it's a fun way to showcase an error of analysis. And these are what they typically look like, okay? So you can take a look at that, but what I want to do is show you what resources you have access to in your Taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So here we are on the website. You're going to go to members, enter here, Taking on the B.E.S.T. It might ask you to log in, so you'll just do that. Of course, we want 5th grade. We are working on the AR strand and all the way down to MA.5.AR.3.2 patterns with inputs and outputs. So the first page that you'll come to are the bronze resources. So bronze, silver, and gold members have access to these bronze resources. There's 2 video lessons, and you've got a printable worksheet right there that goes through it. So this first one is all about patterns with inputs and outputs. So you'll use the rule to fill in the missing values in the table. We walk through that in the video lesson. And compared to AR.3.1, I think that this standard is a little bit easier for students to understand. So I think once they see this, 3.1 will actually start to make more sense too. Okay, so there's that video lesson. You also have this, graphing inputs and outputs as ordered pairs. Same kind of thing. Here I actually turned it into a 3-column table. We'll use this rule to fill in the outputs, use the inputs and the outputs to create an ordered pair, and then graph that ordered pair by labeling the quadrant that we have right there. Okay, again, that's a video lesson. You just watch the video. Students can follow along and record it in their notes. Now, if you are a silver member, you have extra practice pages involved. So go here to click for your printables. Here's that same video lesson worksheet with the bronze membership, but then you have extra practice pages that look very similar to what we just did in the video lesson. And here's your second video lesson. Just has everything together and extra practice. Here is a math mission, which is a math task with multiple parts. Here it says that Janie creates an input and output table using the rule 4 plus 3x. Janie makes some mistakes though. Identify which output values are incorrect and replace them with the correct values. Okay, and then here extend the table to show the outputs for if x equals 8, 9, and 10. So they can just add on to this input-output table and create it there. You can see that these math tasks, that these math missions require more thinking and more responsibility from the student. So those are nice way to kind of close it up after you've taught this unit. And then finally, my favorite part is the math misconception mystery episode. You just click play, and then I'll walk your students in your class through the whole thing. So they'll solve the video either independently or with a small group. Then they will watch as 4 characters solve that same problem. Those 4 characters are just me dressed up in silly costumes. And 3 of those characters will make mistakes that students will commonly make with these types of problems. And only 1 student, 1 character, solves it correct. After they've watched all the characters, they'll be instructed to complete their detective report, which is this page right here. And then finally, we have the math misconception mystery episode, which you just click play right there, and I'll guide you through the whole process with your students. I'll instruct them to pause the video and solve the problem on their own. Then they will watch as 4 characters solve the problem. That same problem, 3 of them will make mistakes. Only 1 character solves it correctly. And yes, those characters are just me dressed up in silly costumes. It's super fun to do. Finally, they will complete their detective report at the end, highlighting who they believe the most reasonable answer belongs to and why. and then evaluating the work of the other 3 characters. Okay, if you're a gold member, you have access to even more. So you have your bronze, you've got your silver resources, and then you also have a mini assessment aligned to this standard. Okay. And the answer key right there. You also have this episode of Breaking Down the Best available ad-free and with all of the other resources right there. These videos are also available on YouTube, but the gold members, of course, have a little bonus perk of it being right there. Most people, if you have the gold plan, you've probably selected it though because of the access to McCarthy Math 155. This is a daily math intervention aligned to the Common Core standards that has helped so many students, so many teachers to help so many students. Notice it says aligned to the Common Core standards, so it's not completely aligned to the BEST standards. You just got to know your standards and know what's going to match and what's not. But with this standard, we do not really have any input and output tables like that, but what you do have is graphing on a coordinate plane. So if with that one problem, connecting the input and the output table and then graphing it, if graphing was the problem, you have 7 video lessons that walk your students through the skills of graphing, okay? Super awesome, and your printables are right there. I hope that this episode helps you to break down that BEST standard, to understand it, to know what you have access to with your membership, and to help you feel like you're ready to rock and roll with your students. Before we go, let me remind you that what you choose to do with your life every day, it really does matter. Thank you so much for leading your students to success. Thank you for inviting me into your educational space. And I know that you're busy, so you know what? I'll see you on the next Breaking Down the BEST episode, okay? All right, bye. Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now, bye.